Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Riyad Medeb. I'm the Director at Interim of the UNDP Global Center on Technology, Innovation, and Sustainable Development in Singapore. Today, nearly 80% of all food produced in the world is consumed in urban areas. By 2050, almost 70% of the world population will live in cities. Urban farming is gaining popularity around the world. In addition to reducing environmental footprint of conventional farming, it can help improve food security in cities and countries with limited areas such as small island developing states. Modern farming techniques and the use of digital technology can make urban farming more efficient, productive, and viable compared to conventional farming. However, there are also many challenges. This includes high costs of land and labor in cities and also increased needs for energy. Like other island nations, Singapore is heavily dependent on food import. However, the country is fast emerging as a hub of agri-tech and food tech. As part of its ambitious 30 by 30 goal to increase domestic food production significantly by 2030, the government of Singapore is investing in technology and innovation to boost agricultural productivity in urban farming. How is Singapore fostering its local agri-food ecosystem? And how can Singapore's experience benefit developing countries around the world facing similar challenges? To learn more, we have invited two experts for this episode of the Digital Feed. Bee Ling Poh is the Director of the Agri-Technology Food Innovation Department of the Singapore Food Agency. Sven Yeo is the co-founder of Archisen, an agri-tech company that designs, builds, and operates solutions to grow fresh local produce in cities. Bee Ling, could you please tell us a little bit about Singapore Food Agency and the work you're leading there?
Okay. Hi, everyone. The Singapore Food Agency was formed in 2019 under the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources to oversee food safety and food security from farm to fork. MIWA has been renamed as the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment. The SFA brings together food-related functions carried out by the former Agri-Food and Veterinary Authority of Singapore, the National Environment Agency, and the Health Science Authority. As the lead agency for food-related matters, SFA's mission is to ensure and secure a supply of safe food for Singapore. SFA works hand in hand with the industry and consumers to grow our three food baskets: to diversify import sources, grow local, and grow overseas. I have been with my organization for over 20 years, and over the work areas that I focus on are mainly on vegetable production, technology, and innovations. And over these many years, I have seen the transformation of our farming sector from which involve vegetable soil cultivation to hydroponic systems, and nowadays we are looking at rooftop farming, vertical indoor farming.
Thank you very much, Bee Ling. Sven, could you please tell us a little bit about Archisen?
Sure. So, thank you everyone for having me. So I would say that for us, we started about 5 years ago in December of 2015. And at a point in time, we understood the strong need for us to innovate in agriculture, right? We've always come from a technology background, and we understood the challenges that Singapore faced in its ability to food resiliency. Because Singapore has always been touted as a very strong in terms of its food security, having a lot of different supply partners. But as we can see from how COVID has emerged, it's been a challenge, as countries start to look inward and to focus on handling its own production. So in the case of Singapore, when land is very constrained and resources constrained, there's a need for us to go deeper into how technology innovations can help to improve and leapfrog productivity of farms. So that's where we got started. And we spent the first few years of the company looking into various technologies that exist. We tested a range of them and eventually decided upon the technology that we're using now to actually operate our farm. So as of now, we have a 7,000 square foot farm that has the capacity to produce 100 tons of lettuce per annum. And right now we are in the process of scaling up our production and supplying to the market.
Thank you very much. I have a question for you, Bee Ling, following up to your introduction. What is the importance of urban farming for Singapore? And what are some of the innovations that you are seeing in this space?
Okay, urban farming is naturally very important for our food security, as Singapore imports more than 90% of our food. Disruptions in our food supply chains will heavily impact us. Trends already point to challenges such as growing world population, dwindling resources, and climate change. While we continue to diversify our import sources, investing in local production will further enhance our food security by reducing our reliance on imports and also serve as a buffer during supply disruptions such as those we experienced during this COVID-19 pandemic. That is why we have set ourselves our 30 by 30 goal, which is our effort to build up the capability and capacity of our agri-food industry to produce 30% of our nutritional needs locally in a resource optimal and commercially sustainable manner by 2030. As a small country with limited resources, we want to grow more with less through innovation and technology. Fortunately, we are seeing the confluence of science, technology, engineering, and design that has set the stage for transformation in farming.
Thank you, Sven. Can you share more about Archisen? You started already telling us how you evolve and what do you grow and how are you leveraging digital technologies and innovation in your operations?
Right. I think Bee Ling just brought up a very good point in terms of the confluence of technologies, right? So as a technology company, when we say agri-tech, right, we appreciate that high-tech farming is a multidisciplinary challenge. So internally within the team, we have our scientific team where it looks into the crop science. We have our engineering team. We also have our software team, right? Because we appreciate that in order to have a good outcome, there's a need to combine a range of different technologies and to identify the challenges and to solve them as we move along, right? So in terms of the technology that we use, so we primarily specialize in indoor farming. Basically, we set up farms in industrial estates that's highly compartmentalized. We are in this area called controlled environment agriculture, where we actually set up grow rooms in the farm, and every grow room has its ability to control and monitor its own climate, right, to be able to optimize the growing conditions for various crops, right? In terms of what we currently grow, so we grow a range of salad greens, as salads is currently our primary product. We also have some interesting specialty greens that are not very often seen in the market. So for example, we have this green wave mustard that tastes like Japanese wasabi. So I think Bee Ling has tried before and she's quite a fan of it. We also have red vein sorrel, which tastes a bit kind of lemony and tangy. And currently one of our best sellers is our ice plant, which we actually grow in Himalayan pink salt. Right, so yeah, there's a lot of interesting technologies that we can apply looking into the current market demand and what's currently missing, right? And in general, I think what we see in the market is kind of boring, because the supply chains are typically bringing in all the mainstream kind of products. Right? So I think there's a lot of room for us to innovate, to look into demand and areas that the current offerings are not able to address.
And I will continue a little bit because I find that quite interesting, the way that you are innovating and talking that you're producing with the pink salt. But in this case, what are for you some of the key challenges that you are facing, technical, operational, and what advice would you give to innovators and entrepreneurs from outside of Singapore, from developing countries?
Right. So I think for a start, I'm sure you can imagine, Singapore has the reputation of being one of the most expensive cities in the world, right? So, cost of real estate, cost of labor is very high. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So that really forced us to be razor sharp in our focus to, look into how to reduce the cost of production, how to leapfrog our productivity to be able to produce competitively, right? Other challenges we initially faced was we were quite early in the scene when we started off, and frankly, there were some challenges in terms of dealing with the regulations because there was a lot of different regulatory authorities involved, and being a fairly new industry was a bit challenging to figure out administratively how to go about doing it because of all the various approvals that we needed to obtain in order to set up the farm. But I'm happy to say that they have responded very well in the last couple of years. They have heard the industry, and they have since set up a task force to improve the entire process. So I think that helps a lot. So I would say my advice to other entrepreneurs would be that it is good to have a connection with the regulatory authorities, to keep an open dialogue with them to better understand what are the national agendas and some of the initiatives that they have, to see how you can tap on them, because it's a very challenging sector, to be very honest. And I think the last thing you want is to not be aligned with the regulatory authorities.
Bee Ling, Singapore has announced the ambitious 30 by 30 goals. Can you please share more about it? And how is SFA supporting all the stakeholders in the agri-food sectors, including companies like Archisen?
Okay. Like I said just now, 30 by 30 goal was set in 2019 for Singapore to meet 30% of our nutritional needs through local food production by 2030, up from less than 10% today, right? So to achieve these goals, we are looking into capability and capacity building. Using some of these strategies, we do have holistic planning of the greater Lim Chu Kang area, where many of our food farms are currently located, to optimize production on farmland and expanding sustainable fish farming in the deeper southern waters of Singapore. We support the agri-food sector to transform into one that is highly productive, climate resilient, and resource efficient through the ACT Cluster Transformation Fund, where we will co-fund the companies to adopt technologies and innovations that will help them to improve their productivity. We also provide funding support for innovative research projects in sustainable urban food production through the Singapore Food Story R&D program, of which one area that we are looking at is about genetics and breeding, where we do want to tap into Singapore's capability in computational genomics to shorten the breeding cycle. One area that we are looking at is whether is it possible to develop our own varieties that is specific for indoor farming. Currently, most of the varieties out there are actually adapted and selected for outdoor growing.
Thank you. Sven, any closing thought, and in particular on the role of technology and innovation in urban farming?
Right. I think Bee Ling did bring up quite a few points, right? So I think we're happy to say that we're also a beneficiary of the programs from Singapore Food Agency. So we invest in automation as well to help to improve the production. In terms of the Singapore Food Story as well, we are often approached as a collaborator with many of the institutes of higher learning. And I mean, we recognize that we can't do everything ourselves, right? And then there's a lot of different deep tech expertise within Singapore. So instead of trying to do everything on our own, we work with the ecosystem, together with funding from Singapore Food Agency, as well as projects that we deem are relevant from the industry. So I think that's a very good alignment of how the funding is tied with technology and with validation from the interest from the industry to decide to proceed forward.
Thank you, Bee Ling. Closing remarks.
It is important to understand the local context. Demand from consumers, climate conditions and regulations do differ from city to city. Innovations suitable in other cities might not be as successful in land scarce, tropical Singapore, and vice versa. So local production is one of Singapore's 3 food baskets to ensure food security. And we have thus set the 30 by 30 goal. In large countries where there is already self-sufficiency in food, urban farming would have a different objective and audience. As it is largely context-dependent, we suggest that the learnings of urban farming worldwide could be tailored to best fit the local situation.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your valuable thought and insight. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of Digital Feed. The Digital Feed is a partnership between CSG Innovate and the United Nations Development Programme. Stay tuned, follow us, and stay updated about the latest development and innovation in the agri-food system. Thank you.